Hi, we're speaking today with Dana Luebke. He is a brain gym practitioner and he is part of the team on Can Be Well. And we're going to talk to him about goal balancing, how it's used in brain gym, and how he specifically sets up goal statements as well. So I'll let Dana take it away and introduce himself just a little bit more on his experience and how long he's been practicing bioenergetics. And yeah, so go ahead. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. So my background is originally as a dancer and actor. I've been part of a two-man theater and dance company for 40 years called Synergis. And Synergis means working together, which is what Can Be Well is doing so well these days. It's really exciting to be part of it. I'm really, pleased about all the developments. And then about 30 years ago, I was going through sort of, early midlife issues that I needed to get sorted out. And somebody suggested that I go and try this thing called brain gym. And I did my first brain gym balance. And lo and behold, we were using movement to integrate ourselves. And I thought, oh, I can do this. Like, if I can change my life by moving, I think I can manage that. So actually what happened was I was going to be doing a performance in Singapore with a show, the one-man dance show I hadn't done for a year. And I had the opportunity to take brain gym 5 days before I left, which were my 5 days to really rehearse. And I followed my heart and spent 2.5 days doing brain gym and had 2.5 days to work. And it was amazing the difference it made in the whole process. When I got to Singapore, I got asked to teach some brain gym and the kids responded so well. That was really great. Then I did a balance in Bali. We spent 3 days there for kind of a rest between teaching in Singapore after the festival. And I did a brain gym with a young Balinese man who could barely speak English, but muscle monitoring, which is what we used a lot of back in those days in brain gym, he just was so in tune. We could just do it all through the muscle monitoring, and it was just so cool. I was totally turned on. So I've been doing it for about 30 years.
Oh, that's awesome. So we had talked about just before we started recording about kind of the 5-step process. So do you want to kind of explain how Brain Gym uses that process in relation to goal balancing?
Sure. So I think one of the most important things to understand about what is in some cases different about Brain Gym from more therapeutic models or modalities is that it is an educational model. So we see ourselves as educators, not as therapists. And that educational model is borne out in the way we do a session, which we call sometimes, especially in Brain Gym 101, it's the 5 steps for easy learning, or people will call it the 5-step balance process. And we believe that, basically in Brain Gym, whenever you work one-on-one, you work with a goal. We never in Brain Gym really work without a goal. We believe that that's necessary in order to work with a client. And actually, even when we teach Brain Gym like to a class, we usually find a way to work a goal in there, or the goal is implicit in the way we work. And part of that is through adhering to this 5-step process, even if the goal in working with a group of people is not stated specifically. But the 5-step process kind of makes sure that it's involved there. So the 5 steps begin with what we call PACE. And PACE is really like calibrating the mind-body system. So we do 4 things. We drink water, swish it around in our mouths before we swallow. So PACE stands for positive, active, clear, and energizing. And just like you start at the bottom of the stairs to go up, we start at the back of the word. We need water for energy to support the system. Then we do K27s, which we call brain buttons with eye tracking, switching hands. That is for clarity. We do, and I'm talking about how we would work on this with children or clients, as opposed to all the scientific reasons that K27s are going to. What actually I learned from my Touch for Health friend, which I think is really cool about doing brain buttons, is that the kidney meridian is the meridian that starts at the bottom of the foot where it touches the ground. So for me, for kids, this is really important. We are grounding ourselves.
Yeah.
We are finding our midline, as well as stimulating blood flow to the brain, all those other sorts of stuff. Then we do cross crawls, cross lateral movements. So we do these with many variations. It's basically to get cross lateral movement going on. So we found the midline. Now we're going to cross the midline, and we're going to make sure that both brain hemispheres are active. Then we do hookups. I don't know if many other modalities use hookups. The reason for this is to make sure we calm down the nervous system so that we have access to the whole brain. And as many kids are today, or many people are today, that their nervous systems are in an alert state, and so the communication with the cerebral cortex is going to be blocked if they're in reflexive mode, and then we can't set a goal.
Yes.
We need to have the frontal lobes active and integrated with the mind-body system, because that intellectual process, not being in our head, but intellectual in the sense of using our frontal lobes, is an important part of the balance process, because the goal in Brain Gym is to learn in a whole brain integrated manner.
Yeah.
So to us, Brain Gym is a learning readiness program. It's about achieving the optimal state for learning, not just in school, but in life.
Yeah.
So for anybody, because we know with neuroplasticity, that's always possible. So we have those 4 steps. Hookups is for positive, P for positive, A is for active. So we're doing cross crawls, which also helps to get some of the tension in the body loosened up. Mm-hmm. So then we say that achieves more of a like a calibration, a baseline from which to work and from which to set the goal.
Okay.
And hopefully we've achieved a certain amount of integration, so the whole brain body system is going to be actively involved in setting that goal. Setting the goal is step number 2. And an important tenet of Brain Gym is the drawing out. We say it's an educational model. Educare is the Latin for to draw out.
Okay.
So we draw out the goal. And so we might ask questions like, so what in your life would you like to have more ease? Would you like to be more effective? Would you like to have less stress? Would you like to find more joy? I mean, depends on who you're working with and what sort of. Sometimes people just come to you and you say, blah, 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 this is what's happening. So we then coach them in the goal setting. We call it pacing the goal, which is we want to make sure that goal is positive, active, clear, and energizing. So positive, we know a goal is a target to reach. It's something to reach for. It's like a vision. So I say as people, it's like a vision of where you want to be. And we can't. Okay, so one metaphor. I'm an artist background, so I tend to teach in metaphor. So if you're in a restaurant and you have a menu and the waiter says, "What would you like?" and you say, "Well, I don't like chicken, and I don't like broccoli, and I don't want fish," you're not going to get anything to eat because there's nothing the waiter can do with that.
Yeah.
So with a goal, it needs to be positive. It has to be something to go toward. I say to people to, maybe you want to get out of Calgary, but that's not a goal, because where are you going to go? You could go hundreds of thousands of places, but how are you going to take that first step if you don't know where you're going?
Yeah.
If you choose to go to Edmonton or to Red Deer or to Lethbridge, are you going to get out of Calgary? Yes, but you need a destination. There's other things.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's really neat.
Another one I love, and this is from Irish Sullivan, who some people sort of know. She always says, "You'd never tell little boys, don't run in the halls in the school, because how are they going to not run? What does not running look like?" You have to tell them to walk, or you could tell them to skip or to hop, but they can do that. They can picture that. But to tell them not to run, that's not how the brain works. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's just positive. Okay, so active, it needs to be a verb. Okay, that's what energizes us. Needs to be a verb, present tense. Active
Okay.
voice, present tense. Just even you can see it linguistically. So a lot of people like to do, my goal is I will stop chewing my fingernails, or I will get my schoolwork done. When? Today, tomorrow, next year, before you die? Like, they think will is being, I'm going to do it, but that's not present, and that's not the way the brain works. So we listen to the goal and the way they talk about the goal, and make sure that they're in the present the way they're forming it. There are other little verbal cues to us. There's a whole thing in Brain Gym around wording and the way we use words. Clear. We say, like, can your 3-year-old brother could they understand that? Simpler is better. There are some people who love to do, run on sentences and goals that, take a whole paragraph. That's, we always say, if you try to eat the whole birthday cake, you're going to feel awful, and it's not healthy, So let's find the slice of the cake or the slice of the pie that we can deal with today, right now. And then E for energized and energetic. Does this excite you? Does this energize you? Because learning is about change. All the work that everybody in bioenergetics does is about change. I'm almost sure, even though I don't know what a lot of people do, they're all trying to facilitate change of some kind. And people come to you mostly because they do want change. But change for many people, is scary. Change takes energy. And so we need that emotional involvement in a goal. It can't just be some idea that I should do this, or, whatever. It's got to be something that also makes our heart excited. Okay? So does that kind of give you an idea about the goal setting process?
Yeah, no, that was really clear, and really helpful. I wonder, when you said about your 3-year-old or your 4-year-old brother understanding it, do you kind of make it simplistic like that, so that it's understood sort of by the base brain, because that is kind of a little bit more of a root, in the back brain, that's a bit more of your kind of fight flight, and it makes it easier for that part of the brain to sort of process, a simply worded sort of goal statement?
I've never been asked that question, and I haven't really thought about it from that point of view. I look at it more from the perspective that we're trying to take one piece of the pie, and the clearer it's that whole idea, energy follows intention. I mean, Dr. Dennison talks about this as
Yes.
well, and I'm sure many people. Energy follows intention. So the clearer that intention is, the easier it's going to get the whole brain-body system around it. And
Okay.
once again, we want it to be a whole brain thing. So cerebrally, we may be able to think of very complex ideas, but we're going to achieve one thing in a session, which may have ramifications and may, in the course, especially the way we anchor in the balance, we may pace it forward in time. We may pace it into different spaces, different activities and stuff like that. But the clearer we get that idea, and it needs to be in the body for us.
Okay.
It has to be embodied. It's not just in the mind, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. So no, that was a really clear picture of how it goes from the step process into how the actual goal is built through both, both pace sort of systems, how it's taken from into say a bigger picture and then moved down to fine tuning into a goal statement. So when you're using your goal statement, um, we talked a bit about like your preliminary steps and stuff like that. And you talked also a bit of the specific wording that you use. Is there common wording that you're kind of finding that you use like a lot with
Okay.
clients?
Okay. So there is the way, for instance, we would teach goal setting in Brain Gym 101. Once you get into in-depth and some of the other courses, this 5-step process, we've only gone through the first 2 steps so far. One of the things that I love about Brain Gym, and I want to get that skeleton out there, because then it's like a menu. It's like, you have on a website, or you have on your application, you have, file, edit, action, whatever, and
Yes.
you can plug all sorts of different things in there. But the thing that always makes it Brain Gym is this, one of the things, is this 5-step process, and then this educational model. So in terms of what I'm looking for in the wording, at a Brain Gym 101 level, I say basically we always start the goal with 2. We do not use I. We're going to change it, you'll see at the last step, to an affirmation. But it's going to start with 2 because it is not yet realized. So it is a 2. It's a statement using 2. I don't know the grammatical word for this, but on a very simple level, I'm looking for a verb, and then the verb sometimes, especially for kids, is easy to come up with. Then I ask the question, so they want to I can't think of a one right that have come up. So maybe it's about they want to be able to catch balls. They want to be able to, play ball.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they want to catch balls. So then I ask them, how? Do you want to do it easily? Do you want to catch them? I don't know. Do you want to catch them accurately? Whatever it is. So you want to win the race, but how do you want to do that? So I'm always looking for a present tense verb, at least one, and some kind of adjective or adverb that describes how, because that's where kind of you get that energetic commitment to it, but also that's very important,
Yes.
and that is where also I'm careful. So I want to run faster. Faster. What does that mean? How do you run now? Do you just want to run a little bit faster, or do you really want to run fast? So that's another way of getting them to see that this is the chance to break the bounds of their own known capabilities, and how we can draw out the potential for going beyond and really reach for the gold.
Yeah.
And then normally we would ask, do you feel ready and able to balance for this goal? And when we get more advanced work, we would muscle monitor that as well. This is the appropriate goal for this system. It's worded exactly as it needs to be worded. Something needs to be changed. We might cross-check, something needs to be added. You can check all sorts of things. In Caroline Erickson's movement explorations, we ask for permission.
Okay.
I give myself permission to balance for this goal. I give myself permission to integrate this goal into my life. I give myself permission to change the paradigm of my life. And then in her work, we actually add a whole nother step in there. We balance for the permission if that isn't there.
Okay.
So this is how this form can be expanded, and she calls it the accordion,
Yeah.
So the third step would normally be pre-activities. So we put the goal into action. And we like to have them somehow go through the activity that their goal relates to, so that they can then note, with our coaching, they will notice where their challenges are. We will also introduce some other pre-activities from Brain Gym menus to notice, for instance, the 3 dimensions of movement and the way they move with their goal in mind will show us where the brain is not working for them, aligned with the goal. And then
can you expand on that 3D? Like I'm assuming you're talking probably about the different 3D planes, right?
Yes, exactly. And so here's the way, because I know there are some people who think, well, Brain Gym people just don't use muscle monitoring. And that's not true at all. We don't teach it in Brain Gym 101, but
Oh, I hope I didn't lose you. And we're back.
Okay, so we're back together here. And so I'm just going to show how that there are 3 ways we could check the 3 dimensions. So the first dimension we call the focus dimension. So this is the movement in the sagittal plane. So we would notice what it feels like to move forward and back. It's easy to move forward, but we don't like moving back. Whatever is going on in there, I just don't feel comfortable here. So that's an indication to us that the brainstem is active and we're not balanced in terms of participation and focus attending. We could also check latissimus dorsi, right? Is that what this check is? We call it penguins. Yeah. Okay, this muscle check here. So we would do that. We'd also just ask people to notice, how does this feel? Do you feel like balanced between your front half and your back half? Also noticing the weight on the feet. Is your weight more on the heels, more on the balls? We would notice their posture, where they are. We would ask them how they feel. That there's a lot of, so we go back between, we can use muscle monitoring as a check, but also noticing how that affects where we are. If somebody's weight on the back of their heels, way back here, so they're obviously not really ready to engage. And if somebody is way over, here all the time and standing up here, we know that they're a little bit over focused and they're probably got tendon guard reflex active and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So
to check the vertical dimension, moving up and down, we would move up and down. We could check, and I like to say to people, so when you lose the sense of the sky space above, all the space that's above here, when you reach up, do you lose the connection of your feet and your body with the ground? So can you reach up, and be be all up there in possibilities, but lose your groundedness. And we can check this muscle, which name I've forgotten right now.
Pector major clavicular.
Yes, pectoralis major clavicular, thank
Yeah.
you. And we call this the swimmer. So once again, we can see what the movement feels like I self-balance, and I just say, no, there's no energy there, you know, or we do the muscle check, okay? And that's, you know, the central axis. What is our balance like? What is our organization like? And it's amazing, you know, people can have this all out and their emotions are maybe, and lo and behold, you know, they can't organize this stuff on their desk or their timetable. You know, it's amazing how these things all relate. And then the last one would be laterality. So moving in the lateral plane. So just noting if we favor one side or another, is it easy to shift weight? So we can also do fig leaf. We call it robots now.
Yeah.
30
Super
years ago, we called
spontaneous.
it fig leaf, and that disappeared quite quickly. So now we call this one robots for some reason, you know. And anyway, so yeah, and that dimension in Brain Gym is about communication and coordination. So we have to have the right and the left hemisphere working together in order to communicate, because we've got to be, if we're going to communicate meaning, we have to have the language as well. And if we have the language, we got to have the context for it to all fit together, whether it's reading, writing, speaking, painting, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's sort of Brain Gym 101 level of pre-activity, some of the pre-activities that we would use for those dimensions. And then we would find a priority dimension. In-depth work, we do 7 dimensions, and we do other things beyond that in some of the other work. But that's the basic foundation of it. So you would have a combination of putting the goal into action and doing some pre-activities, which could include checking reflexes, all kinds of things. But the basic dimension is really basic. I mean, the 3 dimensions are basic to the work. And the 26 Brain Gym activities are all grouped into which of these dimensions they relate to. The next step would be the learning menu. So we would draw out the noticing about, what do you notice? Oh yeah, your knees are locked. Well, you know, oh yeah, I favor, you know, my left side all the time, and it's hard for me to get over there. Okay, and we bring out, you know, any metaphors that we can see in terms of their goal and how that might relate specifically to their goal. Then it's the learning menu, which in Brain Gym 101 is the 26 Brain Gym exercises and repatterning. And after the learning menu can be selected by in many different ways. And this is what's really cool. So when I started 30 years ago, we did it all through muscle monitoring with anterior deltoid. You know, so we need lengthening exercises, we need energetic, so we need brain buttons, we need whatever. Okay, but we also can have, you know, the basic chart, I don't have it here, but of the Brain Gym movements, and we can say what pops out on this page, what would you like to do? Or just pick something to do. And it's amazing how kids just, you know, can do it. And I've had adults. I did a Brain Gym balance with a woman in Iran when I was there. And it was like that, you know, I said, you know, we can muscle monitor to check what you need, or you can just pick something. She said, oh, that's fine. I want to do that. And we got through quite an in-depth balance very quickly because she was just willing to go with it and trusted it. And, you know, there are many ways you can dance back and forth. You can always, you know, recheck with the muscle monitoring. Like I said, in Brain Gym 101, we don't do that. We all do it by other methods. Some people use Brain Gym cards and they can pull out a Brain Gym card, or yeah. So after the learning menu, when there's a sense of completeness there, then what do you suppose we do?
Okay, so we'd be on step 3 or 4 by now.
Yeah,
So we're
you're
not.
done step 4.
Okay, so now would probably be the affirmation, putting it in the
One
eye.
more step first.
Oh, okay.
So if I had this written out, we would be going, we do pace, then we do set a goal, intention, we do pre-activities, we try it out, we find out where, we take a snapshot of where we're at this moment in terms of the goal. We do the menu, which is basically movement and or acupressure points, et cetera, all those kind of things. And then we repeat the pre-activities.
Okay, that
So
would
we
make
would
sense.
repeat whatever pre-activities we did that might be that I might pick and direct, and also however the client decided to put the goal into action. And sometimes we have to help them do that as well. Sometimes we can just step in there, but we repeat those again and notice the change, because in the brain gym model, it's really there's a more, that's fine, that's where they're at. We simply say, that's fine. Would you like to know what I saw the first time when you did that movement? You were holding your breath. Do you remember that? Were you holding your breath this time? No. Okay, so that's a big change, and that an opportunity is, or whatever. Noticing. I noticed this time you jumped right off the chair and went at it.
Yeah.
So those post activities are really, really important. And I noticed the difference between, for instance, teaching brain gym as a tool for people to use, that when I teach it that way, for instance, in a school, I find that kids are teaching each other, and kids come into the next class, even if I'm teaching them dance, and they stand there. They know I'm going to talk at the beginning of class for a little bit to get organized, so they come in and they do hookups because they've experienced the way I teach when I teach hookups. Because I'll do any brain gym that I teach a pre-activity and a post-activity as well as the brain gym, so that they can notice the change. So they felt it, so they know that it's a lot easier for them to be still and listen when they're doing hookups.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I'll have to try starting to use that when I'm coaching my kids with gymnastics.
Yeah, so I call that like the mini balance. So if you don't have time to do a whole, and with a class you don't do that, but you can still, even if you're teaching a class, you can still do a mini balance, which for me is pre-activity, menu, post-activity.
Yeah, no, that's really neat.
And then although in my way of thinking they're actually more like 7 steps, but the way it's taught, the 5th step includes everything else, but really you're backing out of it. So besides, let's see, for you it would be going that way. Yeah. So besides the doing the repeating the post activity, then we set a goal. So opposite that, coming out, would be to restate the goal, substituting the word I for to. So my goal is to easily read and remember what I read, and then at the end you say, I easily read and remember what I read.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And we notice the quality of the goal themselves. We have them rewrite the goal in the I form. And I like to always not have them read the goal and copy it down with the I. But I say, so just state the goal now from your body. Right now, what is your goal? And just use the word I. And sometimes, all of a sudden, the goal is transformed, which is really cool to me.
Yeah, no.
So the balancing process itself, the integration around it, the body comes to a more clear understanding of what the real goal is. Where the body, because now we've gone in, we've drawn out a lot of awareness. we've hopefully brought them more into their bodies, because the idea is whole brain, whole, bodied learning. We brought them more into their bodies and awareness of their bodies. So now the goal comes from that deeper awareness of what they really want or need.
Yeah.
And then celebrate. So part of that celebration is also, opposite pace, is asking them if there's any, we call it home play, if there's anything that would help them to support the goal. Because, and this is something that sometimes people don't understand at first, the whole idea of a balance is not like, okay, you've gone to the, you've gone to the hospital or the doctor and you're fixed. The point of a balance session is now you are at the optimal point for learning. Now you're integrated to learn whatever that goal is. So maybe you need something to support that. So if it was a first time with a client, I would say, is there anything we did today that really felt like it helped you? Would you like to do that every day? So I might suggest, what I suggest is, you do pace, the pace that we did. I have a handout of pace. So drink the water, do the preliminaries, read your goal, and then do whatever that activity was, which is,
that would be the energizing
brain gym activity.
Okay.
Oops, you just froze. What did you say? I couldn't hear it.
I said, for example, one of the energizing.
Sorry, you froze, and so I didn't hear what you said.
I said, so when you're talking about activity, one of the energizing type of activities would be part of what they may have been doing through the balance, that would be part of their
Yes,
homework.
it could be one of the 26 brain gym activities.
Yeah.
So at deeper levels, there's a much wider menu. So now, and then we always say celebrate. So whatever that is, maybe that's a hug. Renata Venike says chocolate, I love Renata from Germany. So now that you see this structure of the, or I'm trying to think of where the way people are going to be looking at this, it would go this way on the page, maybe, I don't know. Here's the thing. That structure allows a practitioner to plug in everything that they know. So in Brain Gym 101, the menu is 26 Brain Gym activities and repatterning. But as you get more and more skilled, that menu keeps increasing. And it could include RMT. It could include a 42 muscle balance. I mean, Dr. Dennison actually does a course for that called Total Core Repatterning, in which we check 42 muscles as the pre-activity and the post-activity. And then the menu is actually quite simple. And the beauty of this system is, which I think is something that probably is in Touch for Health, but I've only taken Touch for Health once. So Dr. Dennison says that the thing that he discovered, and maybe somebody else has, that he said was a really important to him, was that the body loves to prioritize. Yeah. So it's not necessary to do, so we might check out, even in Brain Gym 101, we check out these 3 dimensions, and maybe they're all out of balance, but we ask, what's the priority? And we balance the priority, and then we ask, or we check, we would check the other 2 dimensions that were out, or in the in-depth work, it might be the other 6 dimensions that are out, and see if they just come online. Because often it's like there's a keystone, right? A keystone that helps everything to slide together. So we don't have to go through menu items for every single dimension that was challenged for this goal. The body will tell us what is the priority, we balance the priority, we integrate around the priority, and everything else can fall into place. And that is just a wonderful thing about our whole brain body system.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome. Yeah, you touched on a lot of things, and this is really interesting because just balancing even from like a movement perspective, which is a little bit different than how Touch for Health may do it, or even some of the other modalities, and using it so that this is so accessible to such a large range of people, because movement's something that we do every day, and to be able to kind of include the follow-up movement. A lot of times people will go to a massage therapist and be kind of like, well, now I'm fixed, right? Like I don't need to do, but you know, the ones that actually do their work and don't want to come back so often actually probably do the stretches or the movement that they actually need to, so they don't have to show back up again. And that goes kind of a bit of the same way with bioenergetics, is that there is sometimes kind of like that homework, and putting that goal into practice. And with how you explain it with Brain Gym, that is a really active process that they can use. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah. And one thing that I loved, about, because even though I haven't taken Touch for Health, like I've had the book for 25 years or something and used it, and I know that because John Thie spoke at one of our gatherings about, well, I think just a couple of years before he died, but it was wonderful because he did a whole presentation. And the point that really stuck with me, which he obviously was very, very clear and was very important to him, was that what he wanted was something that families could use to help themselves, help their friends, help their kids, help themselves. And Brain Gym really is like that as well. It's the idea, when I teach, it's always that these are tools for your own toolbox, that you have with you. And I always say, if you don't use this in your life, like right now I'm teaching quite a lot with seniors classes. And I say, if you don't use this in your daily life, I failed as a teacher. Because coming here once a week and doing Brain Gym class with me, the purpose isn't to come here once a week and do a Brain Gym class. It's to improve your life. And so, why improve your life one day a week when your life could be better every day with Brain Gym? So that's my point of view.
Yeah. No, that is awesome. I'm so glad that you were able to explain it and kind of touched up on all the things that I had talked about before the interview, question-wise. I think one things that maybe we didn't touch on, and hopefully we still have some time for, is sabotages. Is that something then that Brain Gym deals with further into the more advanced models?
Yeah. So interesting. We don't talk about that word. I mean, it hasn't been used much in the courses that I've been at. But the most effective way that one of the most effective techniques that I've learned for dealing with sabotage, or actually proactively, is what Caroline Erickson developed in movement explorations. I don't know if anybody else in Brain Gym is doing this way. And this is this area of permissions. Mm-hmm. So we go into it quite in depth. And she's developed 6 different balance protocols to deal with permissions. So it can be balancing on win-win, it can be balancing on boundaries, it can be balancing on an emotional issue, it can be balancing on 7 generations of influence. It can be developed balancing on massive reversals. So, people who have just, so basically you say, they choose to live a miserable life. as opposed to choosing to live a happy life. I mean, that's one way we'll verbally deal with it, but we also check it energetically with them. And there are specific procedures. I find that very effective. And what's interesting is sometimes that turns into the whole balance. So if the permission is not there, in other words, if the sabotage is there, then the balance turns out to be simply about the sabotage. And whatever the goal statement is really becomes just a means for dealing with sabotage, to use that term.
Yeah.
So I know I learned from Renata Venikis to check. She would check, and of course she does Touch for Help as well. She would simply do a muscle check. She would just muscle check. What is the wording? Because I've used it many times with people, actually. So this whole system accepts this goal, or this goal is accepted by this whole system. Okay, I'm really sorry. That sometimes happens to me. The words have passed. I am. Basically, she doesn't use the word sabotage, but it's the same thing. To check that I'm compensating. She used the word I'm compensating. I'm compensating. So that's more of the brain gym point of view on this. That what we're doing with brain gym is effective because we are working to replace compensations with integrations. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, that's actually very kind of like neat wording on that.
So that's the way, until I learned the permissions work, that's the way I dealt with sabotage. So this system is compensating on this goal. Okay, so if we get a strong check on this system is compensating to say, yeah, I'm here, then we start to ask, okay, so what else does this system need to actually integrate for this goal?
Okay. Yeah. No.
And we watch, in noticing, we watch for indications of compensation. So, on the muscle check. So holding a breath is, if I put my hand on your back and check your anterior deltoid, do I feel the tension all the way up your spine? I'm not particularly skilled at just seeing somebody's energy. So I'm a dancer, I'm a mover. I feel the tension in their body, or I notice what the muscles are doing, what the posture is like. And if I see there's bracing, if I see there's any indications, or the other hand is working to help hold up the anterior deltoid, or their jaw is clenching, all those kinds of things are that there's recruiting going on, then that's another indication that there's some sabotage there.
Yeah, no, that is really neat and helpful. Yeah, I know that I've dealt with sabotages a little bit differently, but it's interesting seeing it from how different modalities kind of will use how to find it, and then also how to deal with that specifically. Some people will just kind of, put the sabotage into, like, stack it into, or intentionally stack it in, and then just add it into the balance. And some will do with it, quite differently. And so it's really neat being able to interview everybody and kind of ask these questions and find out how they deal with it, according to their training, and also a bit of their own intuition, right? Because we all kind of may have taken the same course, but we use it just a little bit differently because we have our own energy system, to a certain extent, giving us that biofeedback on how we use our training. So it's been really, really interesting just hearing how you talk about it from a brain gym's perspective. And it gives me ideas on kind of going, that'd be kind of neat to just sort of maybe tweak this or tweak that, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
to just kind of ask it a little bit differently or observe just a little bit differently, you know. And so, yeah, I thank you so much for taking the time and, you know, being able to explain this all. Like, it was really, really great. Is there anything else that you would like to add just to finish this off?
Um, I think just to underscore the idea that one of the things I think that Brain Gym really offers is this educational model and this model of drawing out. In our work, you know, the client is always in charge. We're holding space for them. I mean, I think all good practitioners, that's what they do anyway. But um, we're holding space for them, and they are in control, but we want them to be consciously involved in the noticing, not just saying, okay, okay, this is, you know, da, 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 da. So, you know, did you notice that? Did you notice the way that felt, that response felt, as opposed to the way this one felt? So, and doing some education around what that might mean in terms of their goal, so that they're always aware of the process. I don't mean that they're in, as if you like, state-bound consciousness for their goal. We're not asking them to at all be thinking about the process that we're doing, but we're asking them to be really actively involved in what is happening to them, what they're feeling, what they're sensing, what they're thinking in relation to their goal.
Yeah, no, that's great. Being able to kind of, you know, take it one step further, right? Like making them part of the process and then them part of the, you know, activation of that goal as well, being them, you know, take that noticing into, you know, to the next day and the next day and the next day so that they can start to integrate it fully, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
no, that's great.
Just
So how can people get a hold of you? Your company name, or, you know,
okay.
I know we talked
So
and said you're based out of Calgary, so.
yeah, I live outside of Calgary, but that region of the country. You're welcome to email me. I'm on the website, dana.luebke@synergis.com. Synergis is my theater company, but my website is actually languageofmovement.ca. Language of movement, one word. And my phone number should be there. I'm happy to talk to people, like, you know, it's the old fashioned, like what we're doing. I really like that. So I'm happy to actually talk to people live, as it were,
Yeah.
too.
No, that's great. Thank you so much, Dana, for taking the time and being able to allow us to put this into the newsletter to share it with all the Can Be Well members. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. Bye-bye, everybody.